Good afternoon, I hope everyone's well today, thank you for watching. Apparently we're in a drought in the United Kingdom because it's summer, and the privatised water companies in England and Wales and the nationalised water companies in Scotland don't know how to manage a bit of hot weather without harming their profits. That's the bottom line here, alright? Nothing to do with privatisation, it's about the mismanagement of the infrastructure in the UK. There are other countries in the world that do not have issues like we have in the UK, and we're an island nation, for God's sake, we're surrounded by water. Apparently there's water everywhere, not a drop to drink. Well, I'm not buying that, and that's why I've made this video. The water companies, specifically one in Yorkshire, has decided they're going to put a hosepipe ban out. And then you've got other water companies turning around and saying that you're going to pay more for your water in the summer with smart meters, much like they've done with the gas and the lecky. This isn't needed. It's about managing basic resources, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. It's almost like they want you to rely on the state for everything. It may get to a point where they have like these big taps and they just turn them on, and you need to fill the water and get the water for a few minutes each day, and that's your lot. It's to keep the profits high, which is why they don't actually invest in infrastructure. But it's not entirely down to any private or public owned utility not investing, which I'll get to in a moment or two. The situation is, it's the immigration, of course. We've imported 15 million people into the UK in the past 30 years, at least. We've not really built any infrastructure for the new arrivals. We are below replacement rate in terms of numbers, and yet we've got 15 million more people and we've got no new water supply. If you look at this particular one, the last UK-wide reservoir was built in Derbyshire in 1992, and it's called Carsington Water. And this isn't a privatisation or a public ownership argument, because the last one built in Scotland was Mega Reservoir, and that was completed in my year of birth, 1983. So this is across-the-board mismanagement, regardless of whether it's private or public ownership. Now, we are an island nation, literally surrounded by water. We could have a irrigation system like they've got in Israel. They're right next to a sea, we're surrounded by ocean, and yet we don't have an irrigation system like Israel to actually filter the salinity out of the seawater to make it usable. Why don't we invest in something like that? There's a couple of reasons, but the biggest one is something I've mentioned often on this channel, which is we are overly regulated. Now, I've also mentioned that we've got a bottom-up system and a common law system, which is the antithesis of what they have on the continent. They have bottom down, we have bottom up. But because we are 1,000 years old as a country in England and over 300 years old as a United Kingdom, there's a lot of useless and cumbersome laws that don't help anybody. And we've got too much regulation, which means that private companies, and public companies for that matter, don't really have the incentive to innovate because it's just too costly. I'm going to play this video now, and this video actually demonstrates what I'm talking about. This was in a select committee a few weeks ago, so I'll play this clip now.
To deliver on the need to build more homes, get the growth that we need, and while also protecting the environment.
Shall I go first?
Yeah.
It's worth briefly just stepping back and remembering why we do desperately need to streamline the planning system. I'm going to give you 4 quick examples. So, number 1, the Lower Thames crossing. The planning application for the Lower Thames crossing, let's see the number here. The planning application for the Lower Thames crossing has cost more than £250 million. That is more than it cost Norway to actually build the world's longest tunnel. That's been all in planning, that's all paperwork, not a single spade in the ground. Example 2. HS2 is the world's most expensive railway line. And why is that? Well, in no small part, it's because we're doing things like building a £121 million back tunnel to protect 100 Bechstein bats, or 300 Bechstein bats that live in a nearby wood. Not actually the wood that the line goes through, but a nearby wood. which I think most people would agree is a disproportionate response. Example 3, we are currently building the world's most expensive nuclear power plant at Hinkley. It is indeed the most expensive nuclear power plant ever constructed in the history of the human race. Why is it so expensive? We used to build them cheaper. 20 years ago they were half the price. When we built the fleets in the 50s and 60s, they're a quarter of the cost of the ones that we're building now. Why is it costing so much more? Well, in no small part, it's to do with the environmental rules that mean that we are currently, well, EDF are currently wrangling with regulators, and have been doing for 8 years, about installing an underwater fish disco, an acoustic deterrent to stop the fish from swimming into the exhaust pipes of the power plant. Millions of pounds is currently being spent on this. And example number 4. The planning application for a railway line between Bristol and Portishead, 3.3 miles, reopening an existing line that was cut in the Beeching cuts, is 80,000 pages long, with over 1,000 pages dedicated to bats on what is already existing lines.
So if that doesn't actually demonstrate the issue that I'm saying, that we are overregulated by a factor, I would say by 10. Some regulation can be good. Most regulation is poorly thought out and is far, far disproportionate in my view. We need to streamline our entire planning situation, and we need to innovate. And not just that, actually build the resources. You're importing all of these people, and there's no new infrastructure. This is a failure of both central government and private companies. However, the deregulation of certain parts of the economy would greatly, greatly help that. The tax code alone in the UK, I think something stupid like 20,000 pages, or not far off. Other companies do it better and more efficiently, and we need to do the same here. I'm actually quite fearful that in 10 or 15 years you are just going to be rationed on your water and rationed on everything by large conglomerates, because the state has outsourced everything and they don't want us to actually have control over our own resources. You may think I'm a conspiracy theorist, I'm just spitting facts in my view. The environmental lobby are also quite quiet when in terms of the renewables. The wind farms that kill all the wildlife and actually harm the environment, they seem to be rather quiet when things like that happen, which is strange, because surely everybody wants to save the animals. Not the Green Party. If they're getting the kickbacks from the Green lobby, they're not going to want to protect the animals anymore. It's a sham and it's a disgrace. Now you let me know. You let me know if you think privatised or nationalised water makes a difference. I think I've demonstrated here that it doesn't make a difference. It's the planning and the fact that the government doesn't want to invest on the vital infrastructure that we need for the country to run. As always, like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video later on today. Have a good day and enjoy the heat.